Microjig, maker of the gripper. Work safer, work smarter.
My wife asked me if I'd make an outdoor sitting bench, and we decided on white oak. I'm not exactly sure how many videos it's going to take for this entire series, but in this first one, I'm going to start on the rear legs, the front legs, the armrests, and the crest rail. That's because they're all made from 8/4 stock, and they're all going to be the same thickness, which is 1 3/4 of an inch. So I hope you guys will stick around for this entire build series. I cut the rough length of stock that I'm going to use for the rear legs, and I also cut the rough length of stock for the front legs. And from this one piece of stock, I'll get both the left and right front leg. Now I'm going to start working on the top crest rail. Before I can rip my leg blanks to rough width, I need to first get a nice straight edge of the joiner. The two front legs are going to get roughed out from this one chunk of 8/4 oak. I'm going to rough out the armrests to a little bit over 3 inches wide. I need to try and get a straight edge on one of the sides of my crest rail, which is 68 inches long. My joiner is only 66 inches long, but I think it might just be up for the task. We'll see. All of the legs, the armrests, and the crest rail have to be the same thickness for this piece. I have all those parts milled to rough dimension, and the next thing I'm going to do is flatten one face and plane them to thickness. Aside from flat faces, these pieces also need to have perfectly square edges. I've already confirmed that my joiner fence is a perfect 90 degrees. Now I'm ready to edge joint all of these components. For the short front legs, I need to square one face to that first flat face that we created at the joiner. And for the rear legs, I need to create one edge nice and square to one flat face, and the opposite edge is going to be cut to width at the table saw along with the crest rail and armrests. With the face jointed side against the table saw and the edge jointed side against the table saw fence, I'll cut these pieces to their final width, with the exception of the front legs, which I'll take care of at the planer. Now that I have the components face jointed, edge jointed, and cut to their final width, I can plane them to their final thickness. Now I need to shape the rear legs, and that involves making a taper on the top section of both rear leg. And in order to pull off that taper, I'm going to use my tapering jig by Microjig. Now this is the first time that I've used this tapering jig in a project, so let's see how well it works. I adjusted my tapering jig to 9 degrees. Now I'm ready to make the cut. I set my marking gauge to be just a little bit over than the thickness of the rear leg. I'm going to cut close to that line at the bandsaw, and then I'm going to clean it up at the router table with a pattern bit and a template. In order to get those leg blanks down to the line that we roughed out at the bandsaw, I'm going to use a flush trim bit at the router table, and I'm going to carpet tape 2 straight edges along my cut line. Now there's one thing that I really need to pay attention to when I make this cut, and that's the grain direction. Because I cut my leg blank out of a piece of wood that has the grain running in this direction, the grain in the leg blank is also running in this direction. So when I go to make the cut at the router table using the flush trim bit, I need to pay attention to the feed direction in order to avoid chip out. Now the router bit or the flush trim bit is going to be spinning in this direction. So as I feed the stock in this direction, the router bit is going to be traveling downhill or down grain. And that's the best way to feed this in order to have the least amount of chip out. So that worked really well. The only thing I forgot to do was to use a ring to close up the opening in the router table, but it didn't cause any problems.